The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimates that every 40 seconds in the United States, a child becomes missing or is abducted. 74% of the abducted children who are ultimately murdered are dead within 3 hours. Good morning, class. My name is Elisa Escobar, and today I will take some time to introduce you to a little girl named Megan Conca, the law that is named after her, and show you how important the law really is. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about Megan Conca. Megan Conca was a seven-year-old girl from Hamilton Township, New Jersey. The soon-to-be second grader went for her usual stroll around her quiet neighborhood in her bicycle. Most of her family, her parents, even neighbors describe her as a very loving little girl who occasionally on her bike strolls would pick up flowers for her mom. Rick Shapiro of the New York Daily News reports that on July 29, 1994, Megan never returned home. Her parents, Maureen and Richard Conca, frantically looked for her, asking neighbors if they had seen her until they called the cops. Soon, there were hundreds of people helping aid Maureen and Richard Conca in the search for their missing daughter. After a massive 24-hour search, Megan Conca was found dead about a mile away from her home. When Conca was found, her body was severely battered. She was raped and strangled, reports David Coyne from the New York Times on March 2009. Jesse Temendicas, Megan's neighbor, confessed to the murder after being questioned by the cops. He admitted to luring Megan in by offering to show her a puppy. He admitted to raping her, slamming her head on a dresser until he finally put a plastic bag over her head and strangled her with a belt. Before he stuffed her body into a toy box, he raped her again. He then left her at a nearby park. Now that I've told you a little bit about Megan and the events that led up to her death, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the law that is named after her. Maureen Conca couldn't believe her ears when the police informed her that Jesse was a convicted sex offender, along with his two roommates. She never could have imagined that 3 child molesters could be living across the street, where she was raising all 3 of her children, all under the age of 11. The Cancas traveled around giving hundreds of press interviews sharing their story. They were determined to expose child predators living undetected in American neighborhoods. In September of 1996, Megan's Law went into effect. The law allows information about sex offenders to be made public. Megan's Law websites will provide the name, the address, the description, and the offense information of the registered sex offender. Although the legislative victories were satisfying for the Concas, they couldn't escape their sadness. Temendicas was convicted of all charges and sentenced to death on June of 1997. In December of 2007, New Jersey abolished the death penalty, and his sentence was commuted to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now that I've told you a little bit about Megan Conca and the events that led up to her death, I'm going to tell you a little bit about statistically showing how effective Megan's Law is. Although Megan's Law has proven to be ineffective, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, statistically showing Megan's Law hasn't lessened the amount of sexual predators. It hasn't lessened, the numbers are still the same, but before Megan's Law was passed, people who wanted to know something, they wanted to know if, let's say you were going on a job interview, they would have to call a number, give your name and your last name before you can even show record of any sex offender. So although the law statistically hasn't shown that less rapes occur because of it, it does give people more knowledge. You can actually just it's more accessible for people to look up and actually see if your neighbor is a sex offender. So the law, in my opinion, has come a long way. It's not only more accessible to us, but I think it makes us all feel safer because of it. And now that I've told you about Megan, about the events that led up to her death, and statistically showing how Megan's Law has evolved, I guess I want to emphasize how important not only for me because I'm a mother, but for everybody, how important it is to know who your neighbors are, in the case of Megan, obviously. And it also explained how something that is not necessarily statistically proven to be great can be great for everybody.